YMCA boys camps in Ontario. It was a very good outing for the boys and a good way to meet Canadian boys their own ages.
The farm home was supervised by church ministers, all well-educated men with teaching backgrounds. Additional teaching staff came from the public school system, and the home staff were Georgetowners. The assistant superintendent was A.L. Alexanian, an Armenian teacher whose services as translator were vital in the early days.
There is no Armenian church in Georgetown, but there are 4 other churches: Anglican, Baptist, Presbyterian, and United Church. Every Sunday, all the boys in the body march to these churches in turn and worship.
The front of the church, near the pulpit, the seats were always ready, reserved for us. By this time, we were able to understand some of the English. We used to hum with the choir, and they used to think that was marvelous. And they used to all come and shake hands with us, and that gave the boys more encouragement to learn the Canadian Protestant hymns.
My best time in my young childhood was in Georgetown. There was a small car that I could sit in there and pedal around. That's the only time I think I ever played as a child.
Somehow or other, I did not have the feeling of being an orphan. I wasn't unhappy. I knew my mother was back in the old country somewhere, but day to day, I didn't miss her. Except one day when I was out with Dr. Pierce, and he was giving a talk about Georgetown Boys and the Armenian refugees and Armenian massacres. When he started describing out the massacres, and right in the crowd there, I broke out in tears.
They called her Mayrig, or Mama. Sirpui Budukian was herself a refugee, and it was in her capacity as house mother that she was able to compensate for their deprivations.
And she used to call us Daras, which means my boy, my boy. Everyone was your boy, you know, so we took a liking to her that we used to go to her, kiss her, and hug her just like as if she was our own mother.
Now, of course, when she came, we were all so happy to see an Armenian woman coming to take care of us, because she showed, as I said, she showed heart and she showed feeling and she showed love for us. And the first thing perhaps we could think of was Armenian food. And so we were all aching and crying for some pilaf, make us some pilaf, making some pilaf. We would pester her almost daily. So one day she managed to get some bulgur, which is the raw wheat product for making bulgur, and she managed to make some pilaf. And when we were eating it, this was food for our stomachs and it was food for our souls.
Excuse me, I got mixed up. Sorry, I can't sing no more. Got mixed up. Kind of forgot all the songs I used to know, you know, and I used to know quite a few songs at the time, you know, but when you get away from the talking your language and learning English, whatnot, you almost had to forget what you used to know, you know. Therefore, we had to get to know the grammar of the English language, you know, and so we can pronounce the words proper way.
We used to get an hour Armenian lessons in the morning from 8 to 9. From 9 till 4:30, we used to take English lessons. So we had to learn the ABC, and then I thank him in Armenian.
In 1926 and 1927, 19 boys from an orphanage in Shemlan, Lebanon, brought the total to 109 boys.
What's that, 4 what?
Five,
5-4.
5-4.
4. 6-4.
I am sending you a complete list of names of the Armenian boys at Georgetown. In a good many instances, we have tried to anglicize the names. They could never carry such unearthly names as they now bear through life in Canada. I hope they may consent to change their names. For instance, number 2 has a rather long name, and we have simply translated it into English. This boy is now known as Armin Jeweler. A number of these boys were named for a famous Armenian general, but in view of the fact that the name is awkward for Canadians, these lads have been willing to take the name of a famous British general. In some cases, the boys were very stubborn and refused positively to have their names changed. I refer to numbers 4, 9, and 15.
Some of the younger boys who had lost both father and mother and all other relatives, all they had left to hang on to was their name. Perhaps they couldn't analyze their feeling, but that's what it was, a total alienation if their name was changed too, because they have nothing left at all of the past.
Again, me, huh? He likes him so much, he didn't want to bring some more than anybody else.
By 1928, after 5 years of operation, the Georgetown Boys' Home closed its doors. The property was turned over to the United Church and eventually became a local community center. The Reverend Andrew Lane, committee member of the Relief Association, writes in his memoirs,
I became convinced that it would be to the boys' advantage if they were placed in individual farm homes, carefully chosen, where they should continue school until 16 years. I am sending in the form for one of your Armenian boys and would be very much pleased if you would send him by CPR to Indian River Station.
What troubled many of the boys was that many of them were sent out too young and too weak, and the expectations of the farmers were too great that they expected hired hands.
The little boy Calouste arrived safely and is a fine little fellow. Have you any larger boys there? We would be pleased if you would exchange him for a little larger and stronger boy. We have changed our minds and decided to keep him. He's a fine, quiet little fellow and willing to try anything.
Although the document of indenture was that under a certain age, the boys were to be sent to school, and they would only work after school and before school and holidays. But some farmers kept boys out from school for days and perhaps a week at a time, and some of the boys never went beyond grade 2 or 3 for that very reason. And of course it has affected their whole life afterwards. It so happened that there were many good farmers, and I was one of the fortunate ones, and the farmer almost treated me as his son, and he sent me